Unexplained horrors discovered in the deep sea. Military's sinister cover-up exposed. The headline screamed at Megan like a slap to the face. She scanned the article yet again, heart racing and palms sweating. Strange creatures surfacing off the coast of Long Beach. Sightings of military operations. The words blurred together with the flickering screen illuminating her dim living room. Cold sweat trickled down her back as she hugged her knees to her chest. The ocean, a place that had once brought her joy, now loomed like a dark monster, threatening to swallow her whole. 6 months had passed since her husband's disappearance, and every ripple in the water felt like a whisper, calling her deeper into an abyss of fear. The echoes of laughter and love that filled their home had been replaced by heavy silence. Her visits to the local grocery store turned into an exercise of anxiety. Nods from neighbors carried undertones of suspicion. Was it just her imagination, or were they watching her as she loaded the cart with cereal and juice boxes? A group of fishermen whispered urgently about bizarre shapes gliding beneath the ocean swells, pointing fingers at dark spots in the foam that left Megan's stomach churning. The sun-soaked days painted an illusion of normalcy, but the air felt charged, electric with unspoken dread. As twilight crept in, unsettling thoughts crept alongside it. How could she protect her children from a world she no longer understood? Their dreams turned into nightmares, wild whispers of creatures that lived beneath the waves. She bolted to their room each night, heart pounding as their tiny bodies trembled in fear. "Mommy, something's down there." They'd cry out, eyes wide with terror. The dark felt alive, pulsing with some ancient evil just beyond the curtains. She tried to reassure them, but inside, she felt helpless, terror clawing at her throat. One night, while rummaging through her husband's belongings, she stumbled upon a crumpled piece of paper. "Project Abyss," it read. Her breath caught. What was this? She followed the thread, piecing together whispers of classified military initiatives and coded messages. Each discovery clutched at her heart. The tales lining the beach were more than mere folklore, they were warnings. She'd seen a drone video earlier, the frame shaky but unmistakable. Military ships were conducting operations offshore, skimming over water as if searching for something. Megan's gut turned. She had to know the truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future posts. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me reach more people. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The days turned into a blur of investigation, her paranoia spiraling. Shadows darted just out of sight. Late-night phone calls had no one on the other end. An anonymous note slipped under her door warned her to stop digging. She felt like a night watchman in a ghost town. The streets of Long Beach transformed from her haven to a claustrophobic labyrinth, with danger lurking around every corner. One evening, the moon hung low and heavy, casting silver light on turbulent waves. Megan stood at the water's edge, her heart racing uncontrollably. The surf crashed violently, pulling and tugging at her as if the ocean wanted to draw her in. The memories of laughter mingled with a rising dread. She could feel something watching her. The waves churned, and then she saw it, a grotesque shadow surfacing, larger than any fish she'd ever seen. Could it be a creature or something worse? Her blood ran cold. The sweet escape of nightmares seemed dangerously close as her breath caught in her throat. There, in the depths, something ancient stirred, and she realized with breathless horror, it wasn't just her husband she was searching for, it was herself. The darkness was coming, and she was standing at the edge, teetering dangerously close to whatever truth awaited beneath the waves. Megan jolted back, her breath a sharp gasp that cut through the salty air. The shadow in the water twisted, almost as if it were alive, pulsing against the surface. A knot formed in her stomach. She had come seeking answers, but what she found was terror that felt all too real. The waves growled, their roar echoing in her ears as she took a hesitant step back. The moonlight glinted off the water, revealing a grotesque outline, something not meant to be seen by human eyes. "Mommy," came a tiny voice, piercing through the chaos. Her children appeared at her side, their faces pale, eyes reflecting the fear she felt. "What's that?" they whispered, his voice quaking. She swallowed hard, trying to muster courage she didn't feel. "It's nothing, sweethearts. Just the ocean," she lied, though the words tasted bitter on her tongue. She knew better. The beach had become a predator, and she was but a lamb. Suddenly, a loud splashing broke the uneasy silence. The shadow surged closer, breaking the surface. A massive form breached the waves, spraying water like a fountain. It was not a fish, not a whale. It was a sinuous behemoth, scales glimmering with unnatural colors under the moonlight, each movement infused with an ancient, primeval grace. A sense of horror gripped her as the realization dawned. This was no mere creature. It was a guardian, or worse, a warden of something deep and terrible. Her heart thudded painfully under her ribs. The whispers in her community, the hushed conversations, the furtive glances echoed back in her mind. They had known. They had all known, and she had been blind, caught up in her grief, searching only for her husband when the world around her had begun to unravel. The child's hand clutched her arm tightly. "Mommy, it's coming." Panic etched in her young voice sent shivers shooting through Megan. "No," she gasped, her eyes darting between the monstrous form gliding nearer and her children, small and innocent. She needed to get them away from the shore, far from the danger that lurked beneath the surface. As she turned, the ground beneath her feet trembled. Unbalanced, she stumbled, crashing to her knees in the cool sand. The creature surged forward again, shadows twisting in the shifting water. She shuddered, her breath hitching as she caught the eerie ritualistic movements, a dance of death uncoiling before her. Fighting the instinct to flee, she gripped her children close. "Run," Megan shouted, her voice barely rising above the chaotic crash of waves, radiating desperation. The kids erupted into motion, their fear propelling them. She followed, but the weight of dread tugged at her, a chain shackling her to the sea. Suddenly, the air grew cold, thick, electric. A chilling roar erupted, sending them sprawling into the sand. Megan shielded her children, the world around her blurring as shadows tangled and twisted above them. A flash of iridescent scales and glimmering eyes pierced through the dark, locking onto her with an intelligence too ancient to comprehend. Megan's heart thundered, lightning striking her soul. This was not just about her husband or the rumors. This was a battle. A sinister revelation was unfolding, and she could feel it deep in her bones. As the creature's shadow loomed larger, she understood. She was not only fighting for her family, but for the very souls of those who had come before. With a final surge of strength, she pulled her children toward the safety of the rocky outcrop. But the sea was relentless, crashing and frenzied. As they scrambled away, a piercing scream erupted from the depths. "Mommy, it's still coming." Her youngest clung tighter, eyes wide with fear. As she looked back, the waves calmed, an unnatural stillness blanketing the beach. Was it over? Or was the ocean merely lying in wait? Megan's stomach sank. The shadows hadn't retreated, they were gathering strength. But before she could process the new wave of terror creeping along her spine, something surged beneath the sand, a tremor in the ground revealing that whatever lay beneath the shimmering surface wasn't done yet. What emerged would change everything. Megan's heart raced, the pounding echoing in her ears as the ground vibrated beneath her. The sand shifted, swirling, as if the earth itself were alive. Her instincts screamed to take her children and run, but a morbid curiosity anchored her feet in place. She clutched her son closer, felt her daughter's tiny frame quake against her. Then, under the pale light of the moon, something began to rise. A dark shape pushed its way upward, supported by the gnashing roar of the ocean. The fine grains of sand erupted like whispers in a storm, and Megan watched in horror as a monstrous claw scaled and glistening emerged from the shore, gripping the earth like a vice. "Mommy," her daughter whimpered, tears streaming down her cheeks, wide eyes pinned on the unfolding horror. "Megan." The frantic whisper of her name reached her, and she turned to see an old man, George, pacing toward them from the nearby cottages, his frail frame silhouetted against the night's darkness. "Get away from the water," he shouted, urgency underlined in his voice, his frail hands waving wildly. "You don't know what you're dealing with." What? She called back, panic twisting her stomach into knots. What is it? He opened his mouth to answer, but another roar from the depths drowned him out, raw and primal, sending birds scattering from their roosts. The claw plunged back into the sand, leaving a gaping maw that rippled like a living thing, revealing an abyss of darkness. All at once, the trusty lighthouse beam faltered, flickering ominously before disappearing into the consuming blackness. "It's come for them," George whispered, almost to himself, then turned in horror, stumbling back towards the cottages. Megan felt a chill wrap around her like a shroud. "We need to go," she shouted, grabbing her children tightly and dragging them backward, away from the mysterious claw. But the ground trembled again, this time more violently. A new shadow loomed, writhing through the darkness of the water, trailing flickers of bioluminescent glow that twisted Megan's stomach painfully, like the aftermath of a nightmare. "Mommy," her son's voice cracked, petrified, as the world darkened again. And in that moment, she chose to face it. The thrill of terror sent adrenaline coursing through her, igniting a blazing fire in her heart. "Stay close," she yelled, determined to push through the chaos. They stumbled over the rocks, avoiding patches where the sand shimmered unnaturally. Then came a guttural growl from the depth of the ocean, a sound that vibrated through her bones, commanding attention. A certain presence pushed forward, rising like a tide swelling in anticipation. In a flash, the creature's full body emerged, scales shimmering under the waning light, an entirely alien form, both horrifying and captivating. "Mommy, we shouldn't be here," her daughter whispered, looking as if she might shatter into 1,000 pieces. Reality blurred. This wasn't just a threat to their little seaside town. It felt like a culmination of eons, of forgotten tales and shrouded truths. And as the monster's glowing eyes swept over them, Megan realized why the townsfolk had turned a blind eye. They didn't just fear the beast, they were complicit. "Run!" she screamed again, urgency taking over, but the air thickened with tension. The monster held its gaze, and she could sense something indescribable there, ancient, almost human, hidden behind scales and water. The children were crying, starting to pull away, and Megan felt her grip on their hands slip as her gaze locked with the creature. "What do you want?" she breathed, the words tearing themselves from her throat. And that when the sky opened, torrents of rain beginning to pour down, accompanied by thunder that rumbled like a distant battlefield. The monstrous figure seemed to awaken, every scale vibrating with energy, drawing ever closer. Maybe this was a battle after all. Somewhere deep inside her, something surged, a match stirring in the dark. What had been unleashed? Does she dare to confront what lurked beneath the waves? In the chaos, Megan realized the truth was unraveling, and they were dangerously close to a revelation that could change everything forever. The thunder cracked above them, splitting the night in two. Rain battered down, the drops like icy needles stinging her skin. The creature shifted, a wave of dark scales glistening under sporadic flashes of lightning. The children screamed, their voices barely piercing the storm's roar. Time warped, each second suspended in fear, stretching to an unbearable length. "Hold on," Megan yelled, wrenching her gaze from the creature. She tugged them toward the path leading back to the cottages, where safety awaited. But the ground was treacherous underfoot, the mud sucking at their shoes, threatening to pull them down into the depths of chaos. The air turned electric, charged with an unseen force. In the distance, George stumbled as he tried to navigate the path to safety, his figure obscured by sheets of rain. "Don't look back," he cried out, desperation coloring his voice, urgency propelling his steps. "And Mommy, what is it?" her son gasped, wide-eyed, panic rising just like the storm waters around them. "I don't know. Just keep moving." She felt the weight of his small hand, slick against hers, and she feared losing him to the night's terror. The ground trembled again, a deep growl shaping from the depths of the ocean, vibrating through her bones, and she pushed onward, refusing to look behind. With each step, she could sense the creature's presence lurking just beyond the veil of darkness. Was it watching them? The thought sent a shiver coursing down her spine. Then the world tilted, a monstrous splash where the menacing claw unchecked the boundary between land and sea. The rain had intensified, cascading down in torrents that mixed with the salty spray of the waves, turning the night into a chaotic blur. Shapes flitted in the corner of her vision, thoughts of what lay behind her stirring a primal instinct, a fight-or-flight response trapped in a web of pure dread. Suddenly, an echoing voice rang through the storm, rich and resonant, almost human. "You awaken what you do not understand." The words slashed through the air, chilling Megan to her core. She faltered, her breath hitching in her throat, and felt her children's hold slip just as the otherworldly voice demanded her attention once more. "Protect your kin, or face the abyss. What do you want with us?" She screamed back, frustration clashing with terror. No answer came, only the sound of the ocean's fury crashing against the shore, as if mocking her defiance. "We need to go," she urged her children, horror boiling in her stomach. They continued to flounder forward, drenched and terrified, but Megan felt the earth pulling back, anchoring them closer to that dark maw that had opened in the waves. It was as if the landscape itself was in on the conspiracy, a prison encircling them. Somewhere, amidst the storm's chaos, she managed to see George again. He was close now, panting heavily, eyes wide with panic. "We have to warn them," he shouted, face stark with realization. "Warn who?" She cried after him, but he had vanished into the rain. And in that awful moment of confusion, a flash of gnashing teeth appeared as the creature lunged forward, water spilling from its jaws like a tidal wave. "Mommy!" Her children screamed, the sound cutting through the roar of the storm. Claws of the sea creature ripped through the ground where they had just been standing. "Run!" she shouted, forcing herself into action, leading them forward, farther from the shoreline. But the darkness surged, overtaking her heart with despaired eye. In their sprint, Megan caught a glimpse of something among the rocks, shimmering bits of metal caught in the lighting. Old remnants of a sunken ship? And a shadow passed over her mind. An ancient curse, perhaps, binding this creature in a never-ending cycle of vengeance and hunger. With resolve flickering, she thought desperately of their next move. Treasure or terror, salvation or horror, it was all unraveling around her. They had to uncover the truth hidden in the depths. But with the monstrous roar building behind them, would knowledge bring safety or seal their doom? Would running further away mean running deeper into their worst nightmare? And underneath it all, one question throbbed fiercely in her mind: what price would she pay to save her children? The rain pounded harder, drowning out the cries of her children. Each step felt like a gamble against the earth, a series of slips leading toward inevitable doom. Megan's heart raced, not just from the fear, but from the realization that George was still out there, lost within the storm's fury. Panic clawed at her throat, the crowd of clouds overhead too thick to see the stars or find the direction home. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice trembled, small and fragile against the chaos. It was the sound of her innocence teetering on the brink, and Megan clutched her tighter. "We have to keep moving," she barked, trying to sound more confident than she felt. But as they staggered onto a narrow path, illuminated only by fleeting lightning flashes, the shadow of the creature loomed larger than before. The ground beneath them shuddered as though the earth wanted to swallow them whole. Megan risked a glance back. The creature's eyes glowed, two fiery orbs in the darkness, pinning her with an otherworldly intent. Was it curiosity, hunger, or something far worse? That searing gaze seemed to pierce into her soul, unraveling her resolve thread by thread. "Stay close," she shouted, her voice breaking slightly. The children huddled around her, dripping with rain and fear. They moved like shadows, bound together by terror. She pressed forward, her instincts driving her deeper into the woods. But branches snagged at her clothes, the dark foliage clawing at her arms, whispering of secrets long buried in the damp earth. It was here, in the heavy smell of rain-soaked earth and wild panic, that something felt wrong to ignore. That a sudden chill swept through her, deep and bone-sucking. She turned abruptly, sensing movement in the underbrush. Was it the creature? Or something worse? No, she froze as a figure emerged from the thicket, dripping and wild-eyed. "Help!" the stranger shouted, desperation etched in every line on his face. "It's coming. We have to go? Who are you?" Megan felt a mix of hope and dread, confusion clouding her judgment. "The keeper," he gasped, his voice hoarse. "You've stirred the ancient wrath. The curse awakens its hunger is insatiable. In the throes of disbelief, Megan locked eyes with him, trying to gauge if he was a friend or foe. What are you talking about? The ship. He pointed frantically toward the ocean, where the waves crashed like a restless beast. You must find the heart of the curse, or it won't stop until it consumes everything. The children, they are its target. The ground quaked once more, sending them both stumbling. The creature's growl echoed a harbinger of their impending doom. Megan could feel the tension tightening around her throat, fear clamoring to break free and take flight. What heart? She demanded, frantically searching the stranger's face for answers. He stepped closer, urgency painted across every expression. In the shallows, the wreck, the remnants find them. It holds the truth. But you must hurry. Before she could respond, the keeper turned and dashed deeper into the woods, swallowed by the darkness as quickly as he had appeared. Confusion spiraled in Megan's mind. Mommy, please. Her daughter whined, tugging at her hand. The storm raged on. Megan made a choice then, a decision steeped in fear but driven by unyielding love. They had to find George. They had to confront the heart of the curse. Stay close, she urged again. Resolute, as they maneuvered through the somber trees, the oppressive weight of danger hung thick in the air. Suddenly, a series of low growls thrummed from behind them, a warning that the creature was relentless and hungry. The light dimmed as they reached a barren clearing, a patch where the sea met the land. But underneath the sound of the crashing waves, chains clinked, metal protesting against the pull of the ocean's wrath. She could dimly make out rusted remnants jutting from the sand, glimmering ominously like lost hopes beneath the churning surface. Would courage lead them into the depths of their greatest fears? Or would it drag them into a nightmare they could never wake from? The questions buzzed around her like a swarm of angry bees. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and prepared to do what must be done, while terror and desperation gnawed at her heels. But as they approached the wreck, the heart of their salvation or destruction shadows shifted just beneath the surface, and Megan wondered if they had just uncovered a secret better left buried. What lay beneath the waves, waiting to pull them into its grasp? Megan stepped onto the wet sand, the roar of the storm battling the whispers in her mind. The wreck, a ghostly silhouette in the dim light, seemed to breathe with the pulse of the sea. Dark waves crashed over it, pulling the remnants slowly into the depths, and with each crash, dread flooded her senses. Her heart raced, sounding a frantic rhythm she feared might alert whatever prowled nearby. Mommy, I'm scared. Her daughter clung tighter, a ragged sob tearing through the air. Megan hushed, though the sound fell flat against the storm. Just stay close. The keeper's words echoed ominously. Find the heart of the curse. She had no choice. They needed to find it, to understand what had awakened the relentless creature hunting them. But the closer they got to the ship's remains, the more that haunting growl reverberated in her bones, a malevolent reminder of their peril. They had reached the edge of the wreck. Rusted metal jutted up from the sand like jagged teeth, and shadows played tricks in the frenzy of lightning. Every flash illuminated the tangled mess of splintered wood and twisted metal, revealing something grotesque lurking just beneath. Megan. A voice called from the surf. Her heart sank at the sound. George? She strained her ears against the thunder. Was it him? Desperation clawed at her, igniting her legs to move. Where are you? Then she saw him, or thought she did, a glimpse of a familiar figure just beyond the tide. Before she could process it, a piercing shriek filled the air, a gut-wrenching wail that didn't belong to any human. The creature had sensed their fear. Mommy, please. Her daughter's scream ripped through her composure, pulling her back from the edge of madness. Megan, over here. George's voice broke through the chaos, this time clearer, closer. She turned, hopeful. He was there, stumbling through the storm. The veil of oblivion lifted with every step closer. But then she noticed the shadows cascading around him, dark tendrils stretching towards the children like fingers seeking to entrap. Panic surged through her once more. Stay back, she shouted, her feet rooted in the wet earth. The creature loomed behind George, muscles coiling like a predator ready to strike. In a wild bit of instinct, Megan grabbed her children. With all her might, she screamed, run, and pushed them toward George. Time seemed to slow, the storm fading into an eerie hush as the ground vibrated with monstrous footsteps. A flash of light illuminated the creature, a disfigured face twisted in wrath, eyes blazing with an insatiable hunger. "There is no time," George yelled, his face a mask of desperation. "The heart. We need to find it now?" Megan's mind reeled. Every ounce of nurturing protection bolstered an iron resolve. But where? The wreck became a maze of shadows and sirens, drawing them closer to disaster. As they stumbled over debris, she caught a glimmer just below the surface, a pulsating light, sharp against the midnight depths. Her gut twisted. "The heart, is it down there?" "It's the only way," George urged. The ground trembled violently as the creature lunged forward, the air thick with its rancid breath. Fear surged in her veins, but a fierce determination flickered within. If they could confront and understand it, they might have a chance. With no time for doubt, Megan yanked her children close, her voice steady. "We go together. On 3, we dive." But as she prepared to take the plunge, the air stilled around them. The creature hesitated, its gaze hungry and locked on them. What lay hidden below? Was it not just salvation, but a greater nightmare waiting to swallow them whole? "Ready?" Megan whispered, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders as the shadows danced with sinister intent. 3, 2, the creature roared, a sound that chilled the blood. "What if we're wrong?" Her daughter's voice quivered. "It's our only choice," Megan shouted, the water's cold embrace calling them. As the waves surged upward, ready to consume everything, she grasped the hands of her children tightly. The pulse of ancient fear intensified, urging them downward into murky depths. They were not alone. What awaited them in the abyss could redefine everything. Would it be salvation or doom that surfaced from the darkness? The moment of truth was at hand, but the answer lay swallowed by the depths, lost to storm and shadow. Cold water enveloped them, pulling them into a world darker than the storm above. Megan held her children's hands tightly, her heart pounding against her ribs like a desperate drum. The pulsating light flickered ahead, drawing them deeper, each heartbeat echoing in the silence of the underwater abyss. She could feel the pressure around them, like an invisible hand pushing them towards the unknown. "Mommy, I can't," her daughter whimpered, panic rising in her voice. "Just hold on," Megan urged, kicking her legs harder. They needed to reach the light, to find whatever lay at the bottom, the heart of the curse. As they descended, shadows danced all around them, weaving through the darkness like a predator stalking its prey. The weight of the water pressed down on her, urging her to give in, to stop fighting. But she couldn't. They had to survive. Suddenly, a flash erupted nearby, bright and blinding. Squinting, Megan strained to see through the murky water. The light had intensified, revealing shapes lurking in the depths. They were not just shadows but remnants of something ancient, half-sunken ships and broken machinery, long forgotten by time. And there, cloaked in a veil of darkness, something moved, gliding silently across the ocean floor. "Megan!" George's voice pierced through the water, sounding distorted yet urgent. "We need to get to the heart. It's down there." He pointed to a pulsating mass just ahead. She swam closer. The muted thrum of the heartbeat grew louder, reverberating in her bones, matching the frantic tempo of her heart. But it wasn't just the heart of the curse, it was alive. The mass was a creature, writhing and shifting, its surface like scales gleaming in the abyssal gloom. "What is that?" Her daughter gasped, eyes wide with terror. "Stay close," Megan shouted, fighting against a surge of dread. They pressed on, the water around them thickening with an eerie energy. Reaching the pulsating mass, Megan felt an overwhelming compulsion wash over her, an urge to touch it. For a brief moment, she hesitated, a voice in her mind warning her of what lay ahead. Yet the bond between her and her children pulled her forward. George reached the surface of the creature first, fingers outstretched, brushing against its glistening skin. As he made contact, the heartbeat quickened, a thunderous echo in the silence. Something surged through him, a connection she couldn't begin to understand. "No!" Megan yelled, leaping forward, but not in time. With a violent shudder, the creature recoiled. George was swallowed in a heartbeat, his body merging with the shadows beneath. The water turned to chaos, churning violently around them, dragging Megan and her daughter back, pulling them into the depths. "Mommy!" Her daughter shrieked, but the pull of the abyss drowned out the sound, and panic seized Megan's chest. She had to fight. They had to escape, but then silence fell, and the waters stilled. They hovered, weightless, the creature's heartbeat calming into rhythmic pulses that synchronized around them. What had just happened? Where was George? A flicker of light broke the darkness, revealing a cavern hidden within the depths. There was something ancient and twisted about it, something that felt like a warning. Shadows hung heavily, watching, waiting. Megan felt her resolve shatter. She turned to flee, but the water around them shimmered, shifting into forms that seemed desperately familiar. Faces twisted in agony surfaced before her, all the lost souls consumed by the depths. "Mommy, what is happening?" Her daughter's voice trembled. "The heart, it's more than we thought," Megan breathed, fear curling in her stomach like a living creature. Would they be drawn in too? Could they escape the curse that resided within the dark? Just then, a sharp pain flared against her side, a hidden current pulling her downward toward the harrowing embrace of the abyss. "Get away from her!" she yelled, grappling for the surface, her child clinging to her. Both of them caught in the grip of their accumulating dread as they kicked and thrashed. The darkness closed in. Around them, what was waiting beneath? Were they doomed to share George's fate, or could they confront whatever horror lay hidden, trapped in the depths of despair? And as the very water seemed to breathe in an ominous whisper, the truth of the heart surrounded them, a truth that may shatter their minds before uttering it aloud. What awaited them was not mere survival, but something unfathomable. They were not alone in this nightmare. What dark secrets would the depths reveal? The pull intensified, an icy grip wrapping around Megan's torso as she struggled against the relentless current. Panic gnawed at her insides like a wild animal. She couldn't breathe. She felt her daughter's hands slipping from her grasp, and another surge of fear coursed through her. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice echoed in the watery void, but it felt miles away, swallowed by the endless darkness. Megan fought against the invisible current, her arms thrashing wildly. It was as if the abyss itself sought to consume them both. Desperation clawed at her heart, squeezing out thoughts of survival. George's disappearance hung heavy in the silence, a specter haunting her every move. Just then, the pulsing mass surged toward them, its form shifting and pulsating, as if it had a mind of its own, a predatory intelligence lurking within the shadows. The heartbeat quickened, reverberating through the water. It felt like a countdown. "Down. We need to go down," Megan screamed, instinctively pulling her daughter beneath the mass, where the water felt both heavy and strangely warm. The light flickered above, fading into a distant glimmer as they sank deeper. The warble of an echoing voice seeped into her consciousness, whispering promises laced with deceit. "Join us, be one with the dark." It was seductive and terrifying, the promise of escape tying her stomach in knots. No, she couldn't succumb to this. Suddenly, the glowing mass lunged toward them. It was no longer a mere creature but a swirling cyclone of light and darkness, embodying the pain and anguish of souls lost to the deep. Faces materialized in the glow, twisted, pallid, mouths open in silent screams. Each face passed before them, a gauntlet of despair. The jolt of energy pulsed through Megan, and she could feel her daughter's fear. "We need to go back. We have to." Then, a strange pull seized both of them, not from the water, but from the very heart of the creature. Their eyes met wide, terrified, and yet somehow resigned to their fate. The heart's rhythm syncopated with hers, growing louder, drowning out all logical thought. As they floated toward the creature, Megan clutched her daughter, feeling its warmth against her, grounding her within the chaos. The beats began to merge into whispers, revealing secrets from beyond the grave, echoes of a tragedy that had happened long before their time. Suddenly, she heard a voice loud and clear. "You'll always return." It was not hers, not even human. "What does that mean?" Megan whispered, the words slipping out as if the abyss itself was listening, waiting. "Mommy!" Her daughter screamed again, panic filling the space between them, pressing against Megan's chest like a vice. Their bodies grew weightless, carried closer to the creature's thumping heart. Voices swirled around them, dark and twisted. The darkness was alive, hungry, and they were meant to be its next meal. Just as their skin tingled with a sensation of belonging, An ominous rift opened in the depths below them, a chasm radiating malevolence. Instinct kicked in, and she thrust them both backward. They spiraled away from the creature's pull, caught in a whirlwind of desperate thrashing. As they began to regain control, she spotted the flicker of light once more, this time far away. But it was still there, a beacon of hope calling them back to the surface. "Swim," she urged, her voice now hoarse, filled with urgency. Her heart thundered with the fight to escape not only the beast but the truth lurking beneath. But the shadows were relentless, weaving in and around them as if condemning their every effort. The faces within the mass twisted further, screaming now, their pain resonating deep within Megan's bones. "Keep swimming," Megan cried as darkness tangled around them like an ever-tightening noose. What if they never escape? What if the creature fed on their despair, drawing them inexorably into the depths? As they kicked upward, the whisper returned, louder this time. "You cannot escape. You belong to us now." With one last surge of energy, they clawed toward the dwindling light above, but the deeper truth remained hidden, a terror that tethered them to the darkness. As desperation grew, the surface glimmered only a heartbeat away. What would they find if they reached it? The truth of the heart awaited, ready to unveil its final horrific revelation. The darkness clawed at Megan's limbs, trying to weigh them down like an anchor. She gritted her teeth and forced her eyes open, focusing on the glimmer above, so close, yet so far. She could hear her daughter's ragged breathing, matching her own, panic intertwining with their shared hope. Victory felt just within reach, but the creature throbbed with hunger, the blaring heartbeat reverberating in her skull. "Just a little more," she gasped, each kick becoming a battle against despair. But the currents shifted again. The mass pulsed wickedly, as if it was alive, an entity that thrived on the suffering it had claimed in the depths. Faces flickered around them, their ghostly expressions contorted in agony, mouths moving as if to shout. The sound was muted, like a cruel trick played by the abyss. Was that George among them? A silent plea tugging at her heart? No, not now. Megan's arms surged with adrenaline. "Swim," she screamed, fueled by the faint light, by her daughter's small form beside her. Every instinct screamed for escape, and she willed herself, and her child, upward. But the water roared an angry growl of an unfathomable beast. The creature responded to her defiance, its tendrils whipping violently around them. She could feel the shadows, sharp and cold, grazing her skin like frigid fingertips. "Hold my hand," she yelled, squeezing her daughter's small fingers tighter. The moment felt monumental, a bond forged in desperation. Together, they kicked and clawed their way upward, the water an unyielding adversary. The heartbeat thumped louder, drowning out the sounds of the world above. It wasn't just a warning anymore. It felt like an invitation to surrender. Megan, a soft voice cut through the dark, the whisper slithering into her consciousness. It was there again, urgent and sweet, almost familiar. "Come back, bring her, join us." Her resolve faltered for a split second, shards of doubt piercing through her mind. Was this George? Was this really him? Megan fought the thought with all her might. "No," she shouted defiantly. "She is not coming with you." The darkness roared in anger, thrashing at them as if it had been struck. And right at that moment, a new dread seeped into her veins as she felt her daughter's grip loosen. "Mommy, I can't." Time froze. Megan's heart pounded violently against her ribs, every breath struggling against the dread encasing her. She felt the tug of anguish in that moment, a hollow realization of what it meant to be lost. No, just hold on." She pulled her daughter close, forcing the rest of her strength into an unyielding grip. The light above was a beacon, but the shadows below a pit of despair. The faces of the lost hovered just outside her vision, their expressions blurring together. It became a blur of agony and despair. Darkness seeped into her thoughts, lulling her toward the promises of peace. Would it be easier to succumb? In that moment, the shout of the depths sounded like a lullaby. Megan felt the current push harder, dragging at them, and her resolve deepened. She wasn't going to let this thing take her daughter. She began to scream, emitting a raw sound that echoed through the water, a primal cry. "We will not join you." And just then, with an explosion of energy, they surged forward. The light above felt closer now, the end of the tunnel beginning to take shape. The darkness, furious, swirled violently around them, grasping with a desperation that mirrored her own. Megan, the voice hissed, a sinister undercurrent weaving through heights of her terror. You'll always return. As they broke through the surface, gasping for air, the world felt like an alien landscape. Water dripped from their bodies, and that sickly voice pulsed beneath, echoing from the new realm. Had they escaped? Or merely stepped into something worse? The realization crashed over her, thrilling and horrifying. The shadows left behind were not finished. They were still there, lingering, waiting. What if this escape was only the beginning? The fury beneath stirred, and within the fresh air filled with despair, the rhythm of the heartbeat thudded in her ears. It was not yet over, and the whispers of the dark grew louder, promising a return. A new terror rolled in, more profound than the last. What would it take for her to escape the eternal cycle? The true nature of the heart began to reveal itself, but at what cost? The surface shimmered under the stormy sky, a fragile barrier against the lurking horrors below. As Megan gasped for air, she could feel the weight of her children beside her. They had made it back, but the victory tasted bitter. The echoes of the depths were not gone. They roost in her chest, a lingering dread that would not release its grip. "Mommy, was that Daddy?" her daughter asked, voice trembling, as they clung to each other, feeling the chaos around them quell in an uneasy calm. "No, sweetheart," Megan whispered, though doubt gnawed at her. "We're safe now." But safety felt as distant as the sun hidden behind the storm clouds. George was nowhere to be seen, and fear of the truth clawed at her insides. She glanced at the ocean, the waves deceptively calm. Could it really be over? With a surge of determination, she held her children tightly. They needed to find George. He was out there. She could feel it in her bones. The water stung against her skin as she pulled her kids ashore, the sand coarse and inviting beneath their cold limbs. The storm continued to rage, but, in that moment, anger brimmed inside her, a fire igniting against the fear that had held her captive. "Stay here," she instructed her children, voice firm. "I'm going back." No sooner had she said it than she felt the longing of the ocean calling her, a siren-esque call dressed in anguish. As she stepped back into the waves, a feeling of despair tugged at her heart. She couldn't let that darkness win. Not now. Megan fought the instinct to abandon her search, as every ounce of her will pulled her forward. The Keeper's warning echoed in her head. The heart of the curse, if understanding the heart was the key, she would find it. Inside the murky depths, shadows shifted, and she plunged deeper, looking for the pulsing light. The heartbeat resonated through the water, a beckoning rhythm guiding her homeward. She swam fiercely, pushing through layers of tangled memories and lost souls. Suddenly, she saw it, a luminescent mass swirling below her, alive with energy and hunger, yet mesmerizing in its glow. The faces of the lost flickered around it, their expressions shifting between agony and peace. George's face was among them, his eyes pleading, swirling in the dark. "George," she cried, her voice escaping as bubbles in the depths. The creature stirred at her presence, drawing closer. Time warped as she kicked toward the light, her love for her family surging. This had to work. "Forgive me," she whispered as she reached for the pulsating heart. With trembling fingers, she touched its surface, the heat embracing her, filling her with memories both beautiful and horrific. In a heartbeat, a surge of images enveloped her: longing, love, loss. A cacophony of emotions flooded her senses. The heart revealed the truth. This was a cycle effort by ancient beings, every soul drawn into the depths, weaving their stories into one tapestry. The ocean wasn't a predator, but a keeper of all lost things. "Come back," the whisper sang, wrapping around her like an insipid tide. "No," she screamed, fighting against the pull. The creature throbbed in response, its need for them palpable. With every ounce of love, she remembered George, the way he'd laugh, the warmth of his embrace, and the protective spirit he shared. Not today. Megan clawed her way back, pushing against the current, feeling her children's presence galvanizing her will. And with that, within the heartbeat of the curse, she pulled her memories of George, wrapped them in the shimmer of hope, and thrust them into the heart of the darkness. The reaction was instantaneous. Energy exploded outwards, a torrent sweeping through the depths. The souls within flickered like fireflies, illuminating the abyss, guiding each one back to their rightful place. With one last push, the water erupted upwards, obliterating the dark embrace that had ensnared them. Light broke through, washing away the sea's sorrow. Megan surged towards it, feeling tendrils of the past begin to release their grip, whispering apologies as they vanished into the depths that the light enveloped her. She surfaced, gasping, heaving, pulling her children to her as the dark shadows thinned, retreating into whispers against the shoreline. Megan looked down at her children, their fear mirrored in her heart, and took a breath filled with determination. They had faced the abyss and emerged, but now the real work began. They would tell the story of the depths, protect the ocean, and confront the curse with truth and strength. Mommy? Her daughter's voice broke her reflection. Yes, sweetheart. Will we have to go back? No, she replied, determination sharpening the words. Not ever again. And for the first time since George's disappearance, the ocean felt less like a monster and more like a keeper of stories, not solely horror, but hope connected by love that ran deeper than fear. Together, they turned from the dark waters, stepping back into the light of their lives, the memories imprinted in their hearts like constellations against the dark sky. The secrets of the ocean would live on right as they should, remembered but not repeated. And at that moment, as they walked hand in hand along the shoreline, Megan knew they would always have to hold tightly to each other, because love was their strongest anchor against whatever darkness lay ahead. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.